Dr. Emily Anderson's fingers danced across the holographic displays, completing her midnight check of the Deep Space Defense Network. The curved wall of screens bathed the command center in a soft blue glow, displaying what appeared to be routine astronomical data to any outside observer. But Emily knew better. Behind the innocent facade of stellar measurements and cosmic radiation readings lay humanity's greatest achievement, an interconnected web of defensive systems stretching from Mercury to the Kuiper Belt. Coffee, Dr. Anderson. Lieutenant Jessica Hayes appeared at her elbow, offering a steaming cup. The young officer had been assigned to the graveyard shift 3 months ago, and Emily appreciated her quiet competence. Thanks, Jess. Anything interesting in Sector 7? Emily took a sip, savoring the rich aroma. They both knew interesting was their code word for potentially hostile activity. Just the usual cosmic background radiation, ma'am. Though, Jessica hesitated, frowning at her tablet. There's an unusual gravitational fluctuation near Neptune's orbit. Probably another sensor ghost. Emily sat up straighter, her coffee forgotten. They'd drilled for this thousands of times, but her heart still raced as she pulled up the deep space sensors. The gravitational fluctuation was exactly what their simulations had predicted, the space-time distortion caused by multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. "This is not a drill," Emily announced, her voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through her system. "Initiate Protocol Omega. Authentication code. Anderson Delta 79 Echo." The command center transformed. Hidden panels slid away, revealing banks of quantum computers. The innocuous astronomical displays shifted to show their true purpose. Tracking arrays and weapons platforms disguised as debris and defunct satellites. Lieutenant Hayes was already at her station, fingers flying across the controls as she brought the outer defense grid online. "Multiple contacts confirmed," Jessica reported. 10,000-plus vessels, capital ship class. They're arranging themselves in attack formation. Emily nodded, watching as the tactical display showed the alien fleet spreading out in a classic invasion pattern. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment, hidden behind a carefully crafted mask of technological inadequacy. Now that deception would be put to the test. The first transmission from the alien fleet crashed through every communication channel on Earth, broadcast in thousands of languages simultaneously. The holographic figure that appeared wore ornate armor that seemed designed to intimidate, all sharp angles and gleaming surfaces. "Primitive inhabitants of Sol 3, the alien commander's voice boomed with artificial gravity. "I am Supreme Overlord Vectera of the Galactic Imperial Fleet. Your system is now under our protection. Surrender your resources and accept your place as subjects of the Empire, or face immediate destruction. You have 5 of your Earth minutes to comply." Emily allowed herself a small smile as she thought about the generations of preparation that had led to this moment. Her father had helped design the first orbital defense platforms. She'd grown up running simulations, learning to think like an alien invader so she could better defend against one. Now it was time to see if all that preparation would pay off. She opened a channel to the alien fleet, transmitting on their own frequencies, another capability they weren't supposed to have. "This is Earth Defense Command," she stated clearly, letting pride fill her voice. "You have entered restricted space. Turn back immediately." The alien commander's laughter filled the command center. "Your species hasn't even established colonies on your own moon. Your primitive weapons are no threat to the Imperial fleet. Perhaps a demonstration of our power will." Emily cut the transmission. They calculated a 93.7% probability that the aliens would respond with arrogance rather than caution. Their apparent technological backwardness wasn't an accident. It was a trap decades in the making. "All stations reporting ready," Jessica announced. "Defense grid is hot. Waiting for your command, Dr. Anderson." Emily took a deep breath, thinking of all the wars humanity had avoided fighting against itself, channeling those resources into preparing for this instead. In less than 5 minutes, The mighty Imperial fleet would learn why Earth had chosen to perfect planetary defense before reaching for the stars. "Begin countermeasures," she ordered. "Let's show them what a primitive species can do." Colonel James Martinez stood before the United Nations Security Council, his dress uniform crisp despite the sweltering New York summer. The sealed envelope in his hands contained information that would forever change humanity's trajectory. Behind him, a quantum-encrypted screen waited to display the evidence that had kept him awake for the past 3 months. "Distinguished representatives," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. 24 hours ago, our deep space listening posts detected something that changes everything. We are not alone, and we are not ready. The chamber erupted in murmurs. The Chinese ambassador leaned forward, her expression skeptical. "Colonel, we face immediate earthbound threats. Why should we divert attention to hypothetical aliens?" James activated the display. Complex waveforms appeared, followed by spectral analyses and decoded signal patterns. These transmissions originated from the Proxima Centauri system. They're not natural phenomena, and they're not random. They're military communications, specifically invasion strategies. He paused, letting the implications sink in. "But that's not what terrifies me. What terrifies me is that they're discussing Earth specifically. They've been watching us, studying our weaknesses, monitoring our conflicts, and they're planning to exploit them." The Russian representative stood, his face flushed. "How do we know this isn't American propaganda? Another ploy for military dominance?" James had anticipated this. He nodded to his assistant, who distributed sealed folders to each representative. "Inside those folders, you'll find independent verification from your own scientific institutions. We didn't come to you first. We let your experts confirm our findings. Every major nation represented here has already validated these signals." The chamber fell silent as the representatives reviewed the data. James watched their expressions shift from disbelief to understanding, and finally to fear. He pressed a button, and the display changed to show Earth's current defensive capabilities against a spaceborne threat. "We have exactly 2 advantages," he continued. "First, they underestimate us. They see our conflicts, our divisions, and they believe we're easy prey. Second, we have time. Not much, but enough if we act now." The Secretary General raised her hand. "What exactly are you proposing, Colonel?" James straightened his shoulders. "A deception on a global scale. We maintain the appearance of division, while secretly unifying our military and scientific resources. Every border conflict, every arms race becomes a cover for building our real defenses. We show them what they expect to see: a fractured, primitive species, while preparing for the only war that truly matters." Screens around the chamber lit up with incoming calls as world leaders joined the discussion. James had expected resistance, perhaps outright rejection. Instead, he saw something unprecedented: understanding. Fear of the unknown was bringing humanity together faster than any peace treaty ever could. "My daughter Emily turns 5 next month," James said softly, making the threat personal. "I want her to grow up on an Earth that's ready, an Earth that can defend itself. We've spent our history fighting each other. Now we have a chance to use that martial experience for something greater." The next 12 hours passed in a blur of proposals, agreements, and plans. The United World Defense Initiative was born in secret, masked by a carefully maintained facade of business as usual. James watched as former adversaries became allies, sharing military secrets and technological innovations they'd hoarded for decades. As the sun rose over Manhattan, James stood at the window of the now empty chamber. His phone buzzed with a message from his wife, a picture of young Emily playing with her toy rockets. He smiled, knowing that she would grow up in a world united by a common purpose, even if that unity had to remain hidden. A soft cough behind him made him turn. The Secretary General approached, holding the newly printed document. "Congratulations, General Martinez. The Defense Initiative needs a leader." And the vote was unanimous. James looked at his new insignia, then back at his daughter's picture. The weight of command settled onto his shoulders, heavy but purposeful. Humanity had just chosen a path that would require unprecedented cooperation, innovation, and sacrifice. But they would be ready. They had to be. "Let's get to work," he said. "We have a planet to fortify." Lieutenant Michael "Trick" Thompson floated in his stealth pod, disguised as nothing more important than a broken weather satellite. Through his quantum-linked displays, he watched the Imperial scout ships approach Mars with all the caution of tourists entering a museum. Their sensor sweeps passed right through his pod, registering only inert metals and defunct circuitry. "Holding position in Sector 4, he reported quietly, his words carried through encrypted channels to Earth Defense Command. Scout Group consists of 7 vessels, destroyer class. They're running standard sweep patterns. Acknowledged, Lieutenant." Dr. Anderson's voice came through his neural link. "Maintain current status. Let them get nice and comfortable." Trick allowed himself a small grin. He'd spent 6 years in this pod, running drills and maintaining the illusion of abandoned space junk. His collection of disguised weapon platforms lay scattered across the Mars orbital plane, each one containing enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. The aliens were about to learn that humanity's garbage was anything but harmless. The lead Imperial ship paused, its sensors detecting something interesting in the Martian atmosphere. Trick checked his displays. They'd found one of the decoy bases, a facility designed to look like a failed terraforming attempt. "Right on schedule. Command, they've taken the bait." Moving into optimal firing positions, Trick's fingers danced across his haptic controls, sending microscopic adjustments to his network of platforms. Each piece of debris shifted slightly, orienting weapon ports toward the unsuspecting vessels. Through his enhanced view, he could see the Imperial ship's energy signatures flaring as they prepared to launch their own weapons at the decoy base. They never questioned why a primitive species would leave such obvious targets. They never wondered why humanity's space efforts appeared so clumsy and abandoned. "All sectors reporting ready," came the update from command. "Planetary defense grid is hot. Lieutenant Thompson, you have weapons free. Show them what humanity's junkyard can do." Trick took a deep breath, remembering all the wars that never happened, the conflicts avoided because humanity had found a greater purpose. His father had been a submarine commander, and now here he was, running the same kind of silent service in space. "Initiating protocol Sunbreak," he announced. "Platforms 1 through 50, executing firing solution Alpha." What appeared to be broken solar panels and twisted hull fragments suddenly shed their camouflage. Quantum-locked weapon ports snapped open, revealing arrays of antimatter torpedoes. The aliens' first warning was a massive surge of energy signatures where there should have been nothing but debris. The Imperial ships reacted with impressive speed, shields snapping into place microseconds after detecting the threat. But they'd prepared for the wrong kind of attack. Their energy shields, designed to deflect plasma weapons and kinetic impacts, meant nothing to the phase-shifted antimatter warheads. First wave impact in 3, 2, 1. The space around Mars lit up like a new sun being born. The lead Imperial ship simply ceased to exist, its matter-antimatter reaction briefly outshining the distant sun. 2 more vessels followed in quick succession, their shields actually containing the explosions just long enough to make their destruction even more spectacular. The remaining 4 ships attempted to retreat, their engines flaring to full power. Trick almost felt sorry for them as his second wave of platforms revealed themselves, cutting off their escape route. "Command, be advised. Cleanup required in Sector 4. All hostile vessels neutralized." He watched the last Imperial ship dissolve into a cloud of superheated plasma, requesting permission to reposition platforms for secondary defense line. "Granted, Lieutenant," Dr. Anderson replied, and he could hear the satisfaction in her voice. "The main fleets notice they've lost contact with their scouts. They'll be coming in hot." Trick began shifting his platforms into new positions, each piece of debris once again becoming nothing more than space junk to any watching eyes. The real battle was about to begin, and humanity's greatest deception would be revealed one devastating surprise at a time. "Let them come," he muttered, thinking of all the generations of preparation that had led to this moment. "We've got plenty more surprises in our junkyard." Captain Sarah Williams watched her tactical display as thousands of red dots representing the Imperial fleet surged forward, their formation tight and aggressive. From her command center deep within Ceres, she allowed herself a moment of fierce pride. For decades, humanity had maintained the fiction that their asteroid mining operations were purely commercial. The truth was far more interesting. "Status report," she commanded, her voice carrying across the bustling control room carved into the heart of the dwarf planet. "All asteroid units showing green, Captain," Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez replied from his station. "Mining charges are armed and ready. Defensive shields at full power." He paused, checking another display. "The Imperial fleet is advancing exactly as predicted. They're following attack pattern Delta 7. Sarah nodded, remembering her Academy instructor's words. "The best ambush is the one they fly right into." The aliens were using textbook invasion tactics, probably honed across 1,000 conquered worlds. But Earth had spent generations preparing specifically for this moment. "Begin Operation Rockslide," she ordered. "All units, execute primary movement patterns." Across the asteroid belt, hundreds of seemingly innocent mining installations hummed to life. Massive chunks of space rock, ranging from the size of office buildings to small mountains, began to move with impossible precision. Fusion drives, hidden beneath decades of carefully cultivated mineral scars, pushed the asteroids into their calculated positions. "Imperial fleet is responding to asteroid movement," Marcus reported, excitement creeping into his professional tone. "They're adjusting course to avoid potential collisions, following our predicted avoidance vectors perfectly." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Of course they were. The Imperial fleet's tactical computers would plot the most efficient course through any obstacle field. They had no way of knowing that every floating rock was guided by quantum computers, herding them exactly where Earth wanted them. "Hemisphere squadrons, report status," she commanded, watching the trap close. "Northern Hemisphere squadron, ready for engagement. Southern Hemisphere squadron, weapons hot and locked. Equatorial squadron, all units in position." The Imperial fleet, now compressed into tight defensive formations by the apparently random asteroid movements, had just entered the kill zone. Sarah thought about all the wars humanity had avoided, the resources they'd poured into this moment instead. Every asteroid in her command had been hollowed out, filled with automated factories and missile systems, then carefully disguised as nothing more than valuable mining resources. "They're scanning the asteroids," Marcus announced. "Detecting minimal energy signatures. Their sensors show only standard mining equipment." "Let's change that perception," Sarah said. "All units, initiate revelation protocol." Across the asteroid belt, chunks of space rock began to transform. Surfaces that had appeared scared by mining operations split apart, revealing massive weapon ports. What seemed to be ore processing plants unfolded into arrays of plasma cannons. Processing tubes became missile launchers, each loaded with weapons specifically designed to counter alien shield technology. "Enemy fleet is attempting to break formation," Marcus reported, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "Their screens are up, but they're not configured for this type of attack. All units, weapons free," Sarah commanded. "Show them what Earth's rock collection can really do." The asteroid belt erupted in a symphony of destruction. Missiles poured from hidden silos, their drives pushing them to relativistic speeds. Plasma beams lanced out from camouflaged cannons, crossing space in lethal patterns. The Imperial ships, caught in cramped formations, had nowhere to run. First wave impact in 3, 2, 1. The void lit up as the first salvo struck home. Imperial ships vanished in balls of plasma, their supposedly superior shields useless against weapons humanity had spent decades perfecting. Others found themselves carved apart by precision beam weapons, their hulls splitting open like overripe fruit. Confirmed kills on 67 capital ships, Marcus announced. Enemy fleet is attempting to regroup, but the asteroid field is restricting their movement options. Sarah watched as her forces executed the carefully planned attack. Each asteroid moved in perfect coordination, blocking escape routes while maintaining optimal firing positions. This wasn't just a battle. It was a dance they'd rehearsed for generations. "Begin secondary attack pattern," she ordered. "Let's remind them why you should never underestimate a species that turned its entire asteroid belt into a weapon." Intelligence Officer David Reynolds sat in his underground command post beneath the Mojave Desert, surrounded by quantum computers decoding alien transmissions in real time. His team had spent years studying Imperial communications, hiding their work behind the cover of speculative linguistics research at various universities. Now, as panic-filled messages flooded their channels, he couldn't help but smile. "Sir," Lieutenant Kelly Matthews called from her station, "you need to hear this. We've intercepted a priority transmission from Supreme Overlord Vectera to their high command." David adjusted his neural interface, letting the translated alien words flow directly into his consciousness. The mighty Vectera, whose arrogance had radiated through every previous communication, now sounded distinctly shaken. "High Command, we gravely miscalculated." Vectera's message began. "The humans, they knew we were coming. Not just knew, they were waiting. Every piece of entertainment we intercepted, every primitive science fiction story we dismissed, they were battle plans, being refined in plain sight." David thought back to his early days in the program, when they'd first realized the aliens were monitoring Earth's media. Instead of trying to hide their military preparations, they'd done something far more cunning. They'd hidden them in plain sight, scattered throughout decades of movies, television shows, and books. "Pull up Operation Starscreen," he ordered. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing hundreds of science fiction plots mapped against actual military capabilities. Every alien invasion scenario humanity had imagined had been carefully analyzed, countered, and defended against. "Look at this," Kelly said, highlighting a passage from Vectera's transmission. "They're finally connecting the dots. Their tactical analysts are matching our defense systems to specific works of fiction." David nodded, remembering the countless hours spent seeding exactly the right fictional technologies into popular culture. The antimatter torpedoes that had devastated their scout force, featured in a popular streaming series 5 years ago, the Asteroid Belt Defense Network. The subject of a best-selling novel trilogy, even their stealth technology had been predicted by supposedly imaginative writers. "Sir, we're picking up additional chatter from their fleet commanders," another analyst reported. They're reviewing our historical broadcasts. They've realized that what they thought was primitive entertainment was actually a decades-long military think tank operating in public. On his main screen, David watched as more Imperial ships vanished under Earth's counterattack. Each loss corresponded to a defense system that had been imagined in human media, then quietly built and perfected while the aliens laughed at humanity's supposedly juvenile fantasies. "New transmission intercepted," Kelly announced. "Vectera is ordering a complete tactical reassessment. They're trying to identify which other fictional weapons we might have waiting for them. Send this to Dr. Anderson at command," David instructed, forwarding the intercepted communications. "She'll want to know they're finally understanding what they're really up against." He stood and walked to the central holographic display, where hundreds of science fiction references floated alongside their corresponding real-world weapon systems. Some of the most outlandish stories had been specifically crafted by military think tanks, designed to misdirect alien observers while accurately depicting Earth's actual capabilities. "Lieutenant Matthews," he called, "bring up the psychological analysis of their command structure." The display shifted, showing a complex web of alien hierarchies and behavioral patterns. Their entire strategy had been based on the assumption that humanity was a primitive, fractured species whose entertainment revealed their technological limitations. That assumption was now crumbling in real time. "They're beginning to realize," David mused, That every time they intercepted our broadcasts, every time they monitored our internet, every time they thought they were gathering intelligence about a primitive species, they were actually reading our war plans. A new alert flashed across his display. Vectera was attempting to contact Earth again, this time on a different frequency. The Supreme Overlord's voice had lost all trace of its former arrogance. To Earth Defense Command, the transmission began. We request immediate dialogue regarding cessation of hostilities. David smiled, thinking of all the science fiction writers, filmmakers, and creators who had unknowingly contributed to humanity's greatest military deception. Send their transmission to command, he ordered. But first, let's show them one more fictional weapon system. Something from that new series about quantum phase shifting. After all, they had so many more surprises to reveal. Dr. Rebecca Thompson stood in the heart of the lunar defense base, surrounded by holographic displays showing the desperate push of Vectera's remaining forces toward Earth. The chamber, carved deep beneath the moon's surface, hummed with the power of quantum computers calculating gravitational vectors. Every screen showed Imperial ships advancing, their formation tight and desperate. "Status on the Gravity Lance Network?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tension crackling through the command center. "All stations report ready, Doctor." Commander James Chen replied from his station. "Power cores are charged to maximum capacity. The magnetic containment fields are stable." He paused, checking another display. "The enemy fleet is entering optimal range in 45 seconds. Rebecca nodded, thinking of the decades spent perfecting this technology. While the rest of the world believed humanity's gravity manipulation research had stalled at simple artificial gravity for space stations, the truth was far more impressive. They had mastered gravity not for exploration or comfort, but as the ultimate weapon. "Begin primary sequence," she ordered. "Initiate gravitational lens formation." Around the moon, hidden emitters powered up. What appeared to be simple communication arrays and solar panels revealed their true purpose, creating an intricate web of overlapping gravitational fields. The alien sensors would detect the distortions, but their tactical computers would interpret them as natural phenomena. "Enemy fleet is reacting to gravitational anomalies," reported Lieutenant Sarah Nash from the sensor station. "They're adjusting shields to compensate for what they think is lunar gravitational interference." Rebecca allowed herself a small smile. The aliens' overconfidence in their shield technology would be their undoing. They assumed their advanced barriers could protect them from any weapon Earth might possess. They never considered that humanity would turn the very fabric of space against them. "All stations, prepare for full power projection," she commanded. "Synchronize gravitational fields on my mark." The displays showed Vectera's fleet approaching the optimal firing zone. Their ship's energy signatures flared as they powered up weapons, preparing for what they thought would be their final assault on Earth. They had no idea they were flying into humanity's most devastating trap. "Vector calculations complete," Commander Chen announced. "Gravitational focus points locked on all major enemy vessels." Rebecca took a deep breath, remembering all the simulations, all the tests conducted in secret. They had practiced this moment thousands of times, perfecting the precise gravitational manipulation required. Now it was time to show the aliens why humanity had chosen this particular path of scientific advancement. "Execute Operation Singularity," she ordered. "Full power to all emitters." The lunar base trembled as massive amounts of energy poured into the Gravity Lance network. Around the moon, seemingly innocent structures lit up with contained power. The space between Earth and its satellite became a deadly web of manipulated gravitational fields. The effect on the Imperial fleet was immediate and catastrophic. Ships at the front of their formation suddenly found their mass multiplied 1,000-fold. Their own engines, still pushing at full power, began tearing them apart. Shields designed to deflect energy and kinetic weapons proved worse than useless as altered gravity crushed them from within. "First wave impact successful," Lieutenant Nash reported, her voice tight with controlled excitement. "Enemy vessels experiencing catastrophic structural failures." Their shields are actually amplifying the gravitational effects. Rebecca watched as the Imperial ships began to break apart. Some imploded as localized gravity wells crushed them into dense spheres of metal. Others were torn to pieces as different sections of the same ship experienced radically different gravitational forces. Vic Terra's supposedly invincible fleet was being unmade by forces they had never thought to defend against. Multiple enemy vessels attempting emergency jumps. Commander Chen called out. Their FTL drives are activating. Exactly as predicted, Rebecca said. Increased gravitational distortion in their drive sectors. The aliens faster-than-light drives, trying to tear holes in space-time, instead encountered carefully crafted gravitational interference. The results were spectacular. Ships attempting to escape vanished in brilliant flashes as their drive systems catastrophically failed. Enemy fleet is in full retreat, Lieutenant Nash announced. Surviving vessels are breaking formation, trying to find safe vectors away from the gravity fields. Rebecca studied the tactical display, watching the once mighty Imperial Armada dissolve into chaos. Maintain gravitational coverage, she ordered. Don't let them regroup. It's time they learned why Earth chose to master gravity as a weapon instead of a tool for exploration. Major Thomas Steele Walker stood in the airlock of his advanced boarding craft, watching as it seamlessly matched velocity with the crippled Imperial flagship. Through the reinforced viewport, he could see the massive vessel's wounds, hull plates twisted by gravitational forces, weapon ports crushed into useless metal, and engine nacelles torn apart by their own power. The mighty ship that had led 10,000 vessels into battle now drifted helplessly in space. Final approach vectors locked, Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez announced from the pilot's station. Their defense systems are completely offline. Docking tube will have solid contact in 30 seconds. Steele adjusted his quantum mesh armor, a suit that had been designed and perfected over decades specifically for boarding alien vessels. Like everything else humanity had developed, it appeared deceptively simple on the outside while hiding devastating capabilities within. Remember, he addressed his boarding team, we're not here to fight. We're here to accept their surrender and make sure they understand exactly what happened today. His team nodded, their own suits humming with contained power. The docking tube made contact with a gentle thud, auto adapters morphing to create a perfect seal with the alien hull. Steele's HUD displayed atmospheric readings from the other side, perfectly breathable, just as their long-range analysis had suggested. Command, this is Major Walker. Beginning boarding operation. Acknowledged, Major. Dr. Anderson's voice came through clear and confident. Remember, they need to understand. Make it crystal clear. The airlock cycled, and Steele led his team through the docking tube. They encountered no resistance, just shocked alien crew members who pressed themselves against corridor's walls as the humans passed. Their expressions, even on their alien faces, were easy to read. Utter disbelief. The path to the Imperial flagship's command center had been memorized from schematics decoded years ago. Every turn, every intersection, every security checkpoint had been studied and prepared for. They reached the massive doors to the bridge in exactly 2 minutes and 17 seconds. Supreme Overlord, Steele broadcast on the Imperial command frequency. We're here to accept your surrender. The doors slid open immediately. Inside, Vectera stood at the center of the circular command deck, surrounded by silent officers. The once proud commander had shed their ornate armor, now wearing what appeared to be a simple military uniform. How? Vectera asked as Steele approached. How did a species that hasn't even colonized its own moon achieve this level of technological superiority? Steele smiled behind his visor. You made the same mistake everyone makes about Earth. You saw what we wanted you to see. He gestured to the viewscreen showing Earth hanging in space, beautiful, unconquered, and now proven untouchable. Your species fights constant wars, Vectera said, confusion evident in their multi-tone voice. Your technology appeared primitive, your space presence minimal. "Those wars you saw," Steele replied, "they never happened. Every conflict you monitored was carefully staged. The resources we appeared to waste on fighting each other, all poured into preparing for this moment." He paused, letting the truth sink in. "We united in secret decades ago, turned our warlike nature into an asset, and chose to perfect planetary defense before reaching for the stars." The alien commander's eyes widened in understanding. The abandoned satellites, the mining operations, the failed terraforming attempts, all weapons platforms and defense systems, Steele confirmed. "We knew someone would come eventually. So we made sure we looked like an easy target while building the most formidable defensive network ever conceived." Vectera moved to a control panel, their movements heavy with defeat. "The surrender documents are prepared. Our remaining forces have been ordered to stand down." They looked up at Steele. "You could have reached the stars decades ago. Why didn't you?" Steele thought about all the generations of preparation, the countless people who had dedicated their lives to Earth's defense. "Because we knew that once we stepped into the galaxy, we needed to be absolutely certain no one could threaten our home. Today proved we made the right choice." As Vectera signed the surrender agreement, Steele sent a simple message to command. "Mission accomplished. Earth's first alien war is over. Duration: 15 minutes, 43 seconds. The response from Dr. Anderson came back immediately. "Well done, Major. Time to show the galaxy who we really are." Dr. Emily Anderson stood at the podium in the United Nations General Assembly, just as her father had decades ago. The historic chamber was packed beyond capacity, with delegates from every nation and cameras broadcasting to every corner of Earth. Behind her, a massive holographic display showed the recovered Imperial probe, now reprogrammed to spread humanity's message across the galaxy. "Today," she began, her voice steady and clear, "we can finally reveal the truth. For generations, we have maintained the greatest deception in human history. While the world believed we were divided, we were united. While our enemies thought we were weak, we were strong. While the galaxy saw us as primitive, we were preparing." The display shifted to show images of Earth's defense systems emerging from their camouflage, weapon platforms disguised as satellites, asteroid bases revealing their true nature, gravity lances powering down after their devastating victory. "My father stood in this very spot 30 years ago, warning us of what was coming. Today, I stand here to declare that his vision, and the combined effort of every nation on Earth, has succeeded beyond our wildest expectations." She gestured to the Imperial probe floating serenely behind her. "This probe will carry our message to every corner of the galaxy. Earth is not a primitive backwater to be conquered. We are not a fractured species to be dominated. We are humanity, and we have proven ourselves untouchable." The chamber erupted in applause, but Emily raised her hand for silence. "But this victory marks more than just our survival. It marks the beginning of a new era. For decades, we poured our resources into defense, perfecting technologies that our enemies never imagined we possessed. Now we can finally turn those same technologies toward exploration." The holographic display showed new images, sleek spacecraft under construction, peaceful applications of gravity manipulation technology, advanced terraforming systems that had been hidden away until this moment. Supreme Overlord Vectera asked why we chose to perfect planetary defense before reaching for the stars. The answer was simple: because we knew that once we stepped into the galaxy, we needed to be absolutely certain that our home remained safe. She smiled, thinking of all the people who had dedicated their lives to this moment. Scientists working in secret, soldiers maintaining the illusion of conflict, leaders coordinating the greatest unified effort in human history. The Imperial fleet discovered what happens when you threaten Earth. But that's not the message we want to send to the galaxy. Instead, we offer this: we are a species that turned preparation into an art form, paranoia into genius, and unity into our greatest strength. We can be the most formidable enemy imaginable, or the most valuable ally. The display shifted again, showing the scattered remains of the Imperial fleet alongside images of Earth's hidden achievements. Antimatter reactors disguised as failed power plants, quantum computers hidden in plain sight, gravity manipulation technology that could reshape worlds. To those watching across the galaxy, know this: we come in peace, but we come prepared. Earth's defenses remain absolute, our unity unbroken, our resolve unshaken. But we also bring with us centuries of innovation, creativity, and determination. We offer friendship to those who seek it, and we promise swift consequences to any who would threaten our home. Emily touched a control on the podium, and the Imperial probe hummed to life. This probe carries our declaration of emergence onto the galactic stage. It also carries a warning, written in the wreckage of the Imperial fleet. Earth is defended not just by weapons and technology, but by a species that has turned unity into power and preparation into victory. As the probe began its journey to the stars, Emily thought of her father's words from so long ago. He had dreamed of an Earth that was ready, an Earth that could defend itself. That dream had been realized more completely than anyone could have imagined. The galaxy now knows our true strength, she concluded, and they will never forget the day Earth's defense took minutes to crush an Imperial invasion. The stars await, and humanity is finally ready to reach for them, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as equals who have earned their place among the stars.